Good day and welcome to my live stream. Hope you enjoyed the last one. And today is going to be a little bit more about kind of things that are a bit more relaxed. I know I cover a lot of stuff that's about, like yesterday, about Ursula von der Leyen and things that like Kaja Kallas and the problems. And, one of the last things that I got was from the podcast I did last week was about the dacha and life generally in Russia and why do I enjoy it. So today this one's going to be about Russian winters. Well, winter's arrived and the first snow of winter's here in Ufa. But for me, well, we've had our heating on since October the 1st. Now, most Russians live in apartment buildings and they enjoy a communal heating system. I mean, every major neighborhood has a heating station. Now, this station is different from an electricity generation plant, as it basically just heats up water that's pumped into each apartment. Part of that water is for the heating, and the other is for obviously hot water. So we have 24/7 hot water for 50 weeks of the year. 2 weeks actually shuts down for maintenance, etc., because we have actually heavy water here. So it gets into the pipes, so they need to clean them out. Now, the heating station is powered by the cheap and abundant natural gas that lurks under the deep, rich, fertile black soil of the Russian steppe. And I have 18-inch thick walls in my apartment and double glazed windows. I also have wide and long metal radiators in every room. The very hot water is pumped into each and every apartment and actually flows through the pipeline system 24/7 until the 30th of April. I don't actually have any temperature control or a thermostat. So if it gets too hot, we just open the window and for a few minutes and let the freezing cold air in to freshen things up. Now, the radiators are actually so hot, they negate the need for a tumble dryer. I mean, I can dry a pair of denim jeans straight out of the washing machine in around 20 minutes on one of the radiators. And as for hanging my laundry, I just put it on hangers and it dries very quickly. Now, you probably think that having your heating on is 24/7 is actually quite expensive, but it's not. Here in Russia, anybody who's spent any time knows that heating's not a luxury in the Russian winter, but a matter of life and death. I mean, in February to March, the temperatures plummet between -20 Celsius to -45, so a good secure heating system's needed. Anyway, I mean, that's one of the reasons we don't have a lot of homeless people. I mean, being homeless on the street is actually suicide. You cannot survive outside at temperatures -20 to 40. So you basically either find yourself somewhere else or you become what we call a snowdrop, which is when the snow melts in April, we find you underneath the snow. Now, the gas that's mainly used for heating in our area is owned by the state gas company, Gazprom, and its domestic price is actually regulated by the government. So unlike in Europe or the UK, for example, you're not at the mercy of those greedy companies on the market forces or even the government that taxes you to the hilt to provide for its green lunacy, and the guy that lost a fight with a bacon sandwich who now thinks that windmills and solar panels are the future, but it's obvious that they're not. Now, the heating station also provides me with constant hot water for 50 weeks of the year. I say it shuts down in the summer, so it's cold showers for a couple of weeks, or it's going to the dacha or whatever. Now, for constant hot water annually, 24/7, and heating for 6 months of the year, 6 months, October the 1st till April the 30th, and electricity for a 2-bed apartment, which is what I have, I pay less than £300, which is about $390. And that's about the amount of the winter fuel allowance that Rachel Thieves stole from British pensioners. Yeah, that's the extent of my utility bills. Now, I know some of you watching probably pay that amount monthly. Plus, I don't actually have to pay any council tax, although I do pay around £12 per month for the cleaning of the communal areas in my apartment building. Now, I live in quite a tall apartment building. There's 100 apartments in total, and the flats range in size from studio apartments to three bedrooms. So the residents range from old age pensioners to families with kids. Now, on the ground floor, we have a small Producti or supermarket, which is a bit larger than a 7-Eleven or a Tesco Metro. There's also a Balkan restaurant run by some Serbs that serves some excellent food and some very quality beer. Now, most apartments have some in Russia have buildings and stores at street level. Now, on the subject of food, now the autumn is over, so we've packed up the dacha and closed it up for the winter. All the food's been harvested. Now, I mentioned the dacha in my last video, and I'll explain more about it because our dacha's a bit like most others. They're just outside the city limits, and most of you are familiar with allotments, Well, a dacha's a bit different in its size and scale from an allotment. Our dacha's more of a small holding with a two stories wooden house on it. And there's electricity provided from the grid. And there's gas which is provided by the gas bottles that you buy, Calor gas or whatever. And we pump our water up from an artesian water source that we drilled many years ago. Plus, we have a banya. Now, banya is a Russian type of sauna, and we have a big wood stove on it. Now, the land around our dacha, we have about an acre, and we maximize the use of the land as much as possible with trees, and bushes, and vines, plus several polytunnels and a couple of greenhouses. But we prefer polytunnels; they're easier to maintain. So a dacha is much more than an allotment or even a country cottage, because it's where the family get to spend a major part of the summer out of the city in the fresh air. Most dachas are like ours are family affairs where several generations get together, and many children often spend their summer holidays at the dacha with their grandparents while their parents work in the week in the city and visit on the weekends for barbecues and relaxation. For me, it was not until I got married and became part of an extended Russian family that I actually understood the role of the dacha in Russian society. It's a place for relaxing for all the family, but also for producing nutritious food. Everybody gets to share in it that's produced by the dacha, and it really does help you with healthy eating. Now, don't get me wrong when I say healthy eating. I'm talking about eating food that's not stuffed with chemicals or being sprayed or dyed like you get in the supermarket in the West. I'm not talking about all the sort of organic stuff that they keep pretending is good for you. Ours is all organic in every other way, but we just don't call it that because we just don't cover it with all the crap that they do in the West. Now, I started describing the winter, but most of the food that we eat in the winter is actually being grown by the dacha. That's the food and veg that we have grown, and it makes up a large part of our diet throughout the year, but mainly through the winter. Of course, the hard work starts in the early spring, which is in late April. Because April, it might be the end of spring coming up for your summer, but it was for us here in Ufa, the last snows are still melting and the overnight frosts are receding. And of course, as we were closing the dacha back in October, we trimmed back the vines and the bushes and sealed the ends. So back at the end of April, the digging starts. We start turning the soil so the oxygen and the spring moisture gets in, and then there's a planting, the root veg, the beetroots, the carrots, the potatoes, the onions. That all takes a bit of time. Then in refreshing the soil in the polytunnels for the tomatoes, the peppers, and the cucumbers. And then, of course, the berries and the vine bushes are left to enjoy the spring sunshine and start to sprout. What do we grow and what do we do with it? Well, in vegetables, we grow everything we possibly can because we've got enough space. Beetroot, cabbages, carrots, potatoes, garlic, and a wide variety of herbs. Plus the peppers, which turn out in various colours of green, red, and some of them are multicoloured. It's also grow in various sizes and shapes, not like you get in the supermarket. They come in odd shapes, but once you chop them up, you can eat them. And, everything we grow is edible. The berries we grow are like strawberries, raspberries, cherries, and some Russian sorts. I think I like juniper. They have a unique taste, and I use them to make my legal spirit called samagon. Now, samagon is It's basically a fruit brandy. And in Russia, it's actually quite legal to make what you in the island would call moonshine or poutine or whatever. In here in Bashkiria or in Russia, it's actually quite legal. So with a bit of copper piping and a few other bits and pieces and some fruit, a bit of sugar and whatever, you can make yourself, 20 litres of some seriously good spirit that will blow your head off, and you don't take care of yourself. Anyway, so I make samagon, and I share it with a few friends, because one of the rules in making samagon is in Russia is legally is usually it's for your own personal consumption, and you can share it with your friends, but you can't sell it. So if you actually make it too strong or you start killing each other, then that's the responsibility of you and your friends. But so far, I've actually made some stuff that's pretty smooth and quite enjoyable. So I'll take that. Anyway, so it doesn't take long for the berries and stuff to start harvesting in Bashkiria, because I mean we have basically like 6 months of winter, as I said, but 6 weeks of autumn, and then we have 3 months of a very hot summer. I mean, when I got married to Marina back in the June of 2012, on June the 24th, it was 37 degrees Celsius, and I was wearing a three-piece wool suit. So you can imagine the sweat was coming out the soles of my shoes, and the coolest place to be was actually inside the cathedral, which was wonderfully cool. But outside in the sunshine, Jesus, it did. Anyway, so by the time it comes to the end of June, we've got all the berries ripening. So we pick the berries. We get a fair number of them, but we also save them for putting into jams and chutneys and various other bits and pieces. And of course, later in the summer come the tomatoes and the cucumbers and the peppers, which are great for salads at the barbecue. And after that comes, excuse me, excuse me again, apples, apricots, pears, plums, and the grapes from the vines. Now, we also grow our own garlic. And all this stuff is stored and taken home, and we use it. We pickle it, or we make jam, or we make pasta sauce, or we make chutney. Now, those of you who are British will be delighted that we also grow rhubarb. And my Russian family have grown to love rhubarb and apple crumble with a sprinkling of cinnamon. Now, most of the tomatoes, apart from what we use for salads in the summer, are made into a pasta sauce along with the herbs and the garlic. I mean, we mix it all up and off it goes and into whatever. So that's how we live at the dacha for the summer, and we actually enjoy going through with all of these particular things. Because summer here is a long, we have June, July, and August, and even into September, although we sometimes September can be a bit cold, then we'll have an Indian summer. But come October, that's when we have to switch the heating on because it does get a bit cold. So it's kind of interesting. So life in Russia for people is actually quite enjoyable, particularly from a food perspective, because they love to grow their own food. They love to enjoy their quality food. And it's the sort of stuff that you can't get in the supermarket because, yes, it's misshapen, but it tastes differently. I mean, for example, the tomatoes don't taste of cotton wool, right? And garlic, some of the garlic we grow are the size of your fist. And obviously some of the peppers, etc. Cabbages are huge. And that's, again, just depends on the seasons. I mean, some seasons we obviously have a better summer than others. And, so last year, for example, we had a terrible summer and we didn't grow a lot of potatoes. Whereas this year we had an incredible summer and we've made so many apples. We grew so many apples and pears. I mean, literally, I've made juices and all sorts. And I've got so many in the freezer that I've got enough rhubarb to cope with making rhubarb and apple crumbles for the next 6 months. So, Anyway, so that's the life here. Is the bills are low, the food's good, and it's all kind of interesting. Now, what I'd like you people, if you're enjoying my live streams, and if you want to enjoy them, do please comment and tell me what else you would like me to talk about as far as life in general. Oh, and by the way, BRICS. He's a glove puppet. He doesn't just sit there. He actually comments. So BRICS are now saying, hi, everybody. Glad to see you. Hopefully, it's all looking good. So, yeah, that's what I'm talking about now. I'm just talking about what life is like in Russia. So, what things are really the most important for all of you that you want me to try and talk about life in Russia? Because I know that in Europe, or particularly when I go back to the UK on the odd occasion, everybody thinks that, there's food queues and God knows what else, and it's nothing further from the truth. So I would love to just know all your things. Now, Lisa, thank you for your comments there, Lisa. We're glad you like the BRICS and he's awake. And I love the comments, and I really want to talk about what other things and find out a bit more about what you are interested in. I mean, I make the videos on a weekly basis, or I make 3 or 4 a week, 5 a week, whatever. This live stream, I want to kind of interact and react with all of you so that you can feel part of what we do, and I can inform and help you understand what life is really like here, because the problem is the Western media never produces anything. I mean, and that goes back to, back in the 1990s when I was a major journalist in Moscow. I met people like Angus Roxburgh, who was the BBC correspondent, and he never went out and about. He never went to the pub, for example. Yes, Lisa, I spend a lot of time walking. We've got many parks. And here in Ufa, we're on the confluence of 4 rivers. So 3 rivers and 1 smaller one. So we spend a lot of time walking by the river. We got a wonderful, on the Belaya River, which is the White River. There's a wonderful area there that you can walk along and promenade and enjoy, whatever. Plus, there's plenty of parks. I mean, there's so much green space. It's amazing. You gotta remember, Russia is the largest country in the world, and it has, unlike New York, which has only got 1 park, which is Central Park, or you've got Gramercy Park, which is basically a little bit of concrete, etc. So no, here it's a very green city. There's trees everywhere, even outside in the square outside my house, right? There's trees and there's a little bit of green space where the kids can play and whatever. And the health benefits, it's a great walking city. And I also use a lot of public transport. My wife drives and we have a deal. It's called no drinking and driving. She doesn't drink and I don't drive. So I tend to walk because a lot of what I need is within serious walking distance. It's a bit like Manhattan with the 5 boroughs, the part of the city that I live in, there's pretty much everything I want within 20 minutes walking distance. And growing up in the far north of Scotland, where 20 minutes walk was what I took to get the school bus in the morning, 20 minutes walk is now nothing. So I don't mind. So yeah, the one thing I hear is about healthy lifestyles, as in eating proper food, right? Because when you go to the supermarket or the Producti or whatever, there's always a lot of fresh vegetables, and people grow their own, of course, and fruit, etc. And you'll find that, unlike in Marks and Spencer's or Morrison's or whatever, there's not a huge profusion and aisles of ready meals. The nearest things you get to a ready meal here is a pizza, or you can get takeaways and obviously things like that. So mean, where at least where I live in the city of Ufa. It's a city of 1.2 million people, which means it's probably the size of Birmingham, except it's not size because it's not as spread out as Birmingham. Because it's quite, as I say, it's divided by rivers, and pretty much everybody lives in apartments. As a vegetarian, yeah, you would love it. I mean, we could feed you for weeks on just what I've got in my freezer. Lisa, you can eat fresh peppers, you can eat beautiful garlic, you can eat all sorts of different vegetables. I mean, we grow. I mean, I've just spent a part of today on a big pot of beetroot, which I was cooking, is not about to go into some vinegar, water, and salt for the winter, because it's great for eating with snacks and whatever. And I've got a whole bunch of small onions and all sorts of stuff. So if you like vegetarian food, I mean, I'm not anti-vegetarian, but I couldn't be a vegetarian myself. But I've got enough to keep a vegetarian pretty happy if they come round to my house, because we just grow such an abundance of different fruit and vegetables. I mean, I technically could live on it, but I can't beat the taste of a bacon sandwich. I mean, that's just something for me that I can't learn. So, but anyway, on the food side of things, again, Russia's self-sufficient in food production. So it literally exports 50 million tons of wheat around the world. It feeds half of North Africa, Africa, and Asia. And on pigs, it sells over 2 million tons of pork now to China, and that includes heads, tails, trotters, and God knows everything else. So, and it's all fed. I mean, the pigs actually, and the animal feed is quite that. As Russia produces a huge amount of rapeseed and sunflower seeds to make oil. So the residue, which is basically the seeds that have been crushed, is high in protein, and they use it as animal feed. So you actually have cheap animal feed as the residue as a byproduct from other food. So they pump that out to the pig farmers and the dairy farmers, etc., as high protein cattle cake or pig food. And that means that the cattle and the pigs grow quite chunky and fat, etc., without being given hormones and all the other stuff that is not good for your health, and why most Americans tend to be about 3 times the size of your average Russian. I mean, it's actually quite interesting where, if you look at Laurel and Hardy, Stan Laurel was the tall, thin one, and he's the guy from the 1920s, and Oliver Hardy's now the one from the 21st century, because it's the size of your average American. Well, so anyway, so here, I've quite enjoyed having a bit of a chat, and I'm glad that some of you have joined me. And I hope I'm going to try and do this on either a Tuesday or a Thursday around this sort of time. And I'd just love to get a feedback from you, from what you would like me to talk about, what it's really like. Because yes, I make videos about what's going on internationally and Russia's relationship with it. But I want to use this to find out what people actually are interested in, because it's the only way I'd like to build a community where you actually feel part of what we're doing here, and why I'm doing this. Not just because there's so much crap and so much bullshit out there about what's happening in Russia and about Russia and whatever. I mean, if I hear another idiot on my website saying, yeah, Russia's economy is smaller than Italy's, I really am going to have to do something with that person, because Russia actually produces things that people want. And I'm not talking about just oil, gas, or uranium, or commodities. We're talking about every 5th loaf of bread produced in the world is made from Russian flour. Yes. 20% of the loaves of bread are made from Russian flour, and it's quality flour, and it's not made from GMO crops, right? So it's healthy, and you know it's not destroying your insides. So, coming up to 25 minutes, if there's no other questions, then I'll go and enjoy a glass of my Samagon, which is my spirit, and I'll go into details of how we grew it the last time. Anyway, thank you all for joining me, and I'll see you all again soon. Thank you.